Well, the unlikely event happened and we had a disruption in connectivity, but we're back. And I'll just repeat the motion that the minutes of June 13th, 2024 be adopted as presented. That was moved by Bill Everett and seconded by Danny Meeks. And we can now vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Do we have any deferred items?
No.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is application 2024-0012 La Pointe. And Jenny?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for consent for the creation of one new lot with frontage along Crow Lake Road in the geographic township of Oso. The proposed new lot will be just over 3 hectares or about 8 acres in size, with the retained lot being about 4.5 acres or just under 2 hectares in size. Both severed and retained will have frontage on Crow Lake Road. Severed parcel 141 meters, the retained 112 meters. Both severed and retained subject property is designated as residential area to reflect the property's location within the defined hamlet of Crow Lake. And the zoning is split on the property right now with general residential or R1 and rural. And that would be split between the severed and retained once the application is approved. I'll show you more on the next picture. The subject property is currently vacant, but is located within 300 meters of Crow Lake, which is a designated at capacity lake trout lake. So here on the next slide, you can see the subject property is outlined in red, and the split zoning is identified with the yellow and white parts. So the yellow is the R1, that's a general residential, and the R or rural is the white part to the south. So the severed parcel will be the larger southern parcel, with the retained being the smaller northern parcel. As you can see, the arrows on there indicate the 300-meter setback to Crow Lake. This is important because anytime new lots are created within 300 meters of an at-capacity lake trout lake, both the official plan provisions and the zoning require that new septic systems be installed a minimum of 300 meters from the lake. And this is to aid in reducing potential negative impacts on the lake. Most notably, the phosphorus that comes from septic systems is one of the biggest downfalls to lake health and water quality, especially when it comes to lake trout lakes. So there is sufficient area on the severed parcel to install a septic at least 300 meters. Committee may notice that on the retained parcel, the northern part, the 300-meter arrow does encompass the entire property. There are provisions that existing lots of record, which this is in its current state, would be permitted to be developed with a 30-meter setback because lake capacity assessments were done, looking at all properties within that 300 meters. And the assumption is that all vacant lots would potentially be developed with a single-family dwelling and a septic system. So the retained lot is capable of meeting that 30-meter setback that would be satisfied with the existing lot of record. The new lot does have space that appears to be suitable outside that 300 meters. At this point, the planning recommendation is to actually defer this application because there has been no comments received from Meadow Valley Conservation Authority regarding the application, which again, normally we wouldn't have comments for outside of a 30-meter setback, but due to the nature of this lake, we do have greater setback requirements. Further to that, there has been no septic evaluation provided that confirms that the location that it needs to be outside that 300 meters has been suitably evaluated for a septic. So the test holes haven't been done, the suitability hasn't been done. So that is why we are looking at deferring that today. Committee also may know that generally consent applications do not come before the committee. This one is before the committee today because one of the added recommendations is to have a site-specific rezoning done on that severed parcel. And that's to outline the minimum 300-meter setback required from Crow Lake for any future development on that severed parcel. So as that is not a standard condition, that is something that committee needs to approve in addition to the standard ones of the survey in the 2 years, road widening, things like that, should they be required. So that's why this is before the committee. Unfortunately, planning can't provide a recommendation on approval until we have all of the other technical comments.
Thank you, Jenny. Are there any questions from the applicant or anyone, their agent?
I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Yes.
My question is, why is there two separate zonings on one lot?
That is an excellent question, and I don't know, but that is the way it is. It is all designated residential. It, I would say, should be all zoned as one. It is not, but this will hopefully fix that problem so we won't have split zone in the future.
Just a follow-up. To me, that sounds like we made a mistake on the mapping when we put a separate zone in there. So now we're asking the people to go to the expense of rezoning something that we missed, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, the rezoning would be because we need to ensure that the new development on that lot meets the 300-meter setback. Otherwise, planning staff wouldn't recommend rezoning just because of a split zoning situation like that.
Good questions. Does anyone else have questions? Seeing none, I have a motion before me, moved by Danny Meeks and seconded by Bill Everett, that consent application APPN 2024-0012 La Pointe for concession 5, part lot 2, Crow Lake Road, Geographic Township of Oso, for the creation of a 2.83 hectare, which is equivalent to 7-acre parcel, as a new lot, be deferred until comments are received from the Conservation Authority and from a licensed septic installer regarding the ability to install a septic system outside the 300-meter setback for the severed parcel. All those in favor to defer? Carried. So now we're moving right along for applications for minor variance. We have 2 of them. The first one is application 2024-0014, the merchant. And I'll turn it over to Jenny to provide the planning report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for permission to expand an existing legal non-complying structure. Shown on the screen currently is the sketch submitted with the application. It's a single-story structure with an attached deck and screen porch. The sketch submitted doesn't quite show all of the things currently attached to it, so I have some other pictures later, but it gives you the general idea. There is an existing septic system on the property that is suitable of handling the added increase in gross floor area for this property. There is no further reduction in water body setback proposed, as it is a second-story addition that will be contained entirely within the footprint of the existing structure. So here on the second slide, you can see this is an elevation and an existing floor plan. So the addition is entirely this second-story area. On the main floor, you have the existing dwelling with a screened-in porch and uncovered deck. Those will all remain unchanged, and there'll be no further reduction in water body setback, no increase in footprint, no additional vegetation removed. Everything is just the house is going up. So this was circulated for review to the Conservation Authority, as is a waterfront property. They have no objections to the application as presented. They did note that a permit is required for any development, including the construction proposed through this application within 30 meters of Kennebec Lake. So while they have no objections in theory, you would still need to have a permit from the Conservation Authority before you could apply for a permit from the Township Building Department. As I noted, a performance review was done on the septic system on property, and it is sufficiently sized to accommodate the increased square footage, so no upgrades or alterations are required to the septic system. There were no public comments received regarding this application, and as such, planning staff are recommending that the committee approve the application as submitted, subject to any comments received at the meeting tonight.
Are there any, I'm not sure if the applicant is present online or in person, even better. Do you have any questions or concerns? Okay, any questions from members of the committee? No? All right. Then I have a motion that is moved by Francis Smith, seconded by Danny Meeks, that minor variance application 2024-0014, Demerchant for Concession 9, Part Lot 20, Lakeshore Road, Geographic Township of Kennebec, be approved to allow for the addition of a 9.75 times 9.45 meter, which is 32 by 31 foot, second story that cannot meet the required zoning bylaw water body setback of 30 meters. All those in favor? Carried. Looks like a very nice addition. And and just to add to what I need to say, the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. That's it. All right. Now we're moving on to application 2024-0015 for Duncan. Good evening. And turning it over to Jenny, and I'll remember to turn up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a combined application for permission to expand an existing legal non-complying structure, as well as a minor variance for a setback reduction for a new structure. So on the slide here, you can see it's a bit of a zoomed in and cropped picture, but the red outlines, I've lost my mouse entirely. I'd pointed out. Okay. So the red outlines show the existing structures and situation. So this property is located at the foot of a hill. So the driveway kind of comes down and curves around. And the red outlined square is the existing dwelling. It has a minimum setback of 12.4 meters or 40 feet to the water. The proposal is to demolish the existing structure and construct a new, larger structure, but also to increase the water body setback from the 12.4 meters to 16.75 meters. So it's about a 20-foot increase in water body setback. In order to accommodate this, the driveway will be shortened as the new house is proposed to be located partially within the existing driveway. Additionally, there is a slope excavation to meet the existing grade, so they're looking at digging slightly into the hill that exists at the rear of the existing dwelling in order to facilitate this increase in setback. And along with this, currently the property is serviced by an outhouse. So they're planning on removing the outhouse and installing a new septic system. So the leaching bed of which is shown in yellow on the screen. That's proposed to have a minimum water body setback of 17.45 meters. So new structures are required to meet the 30-meter setback unless variance approval is granted. Under the building code, a septic system can be a minimum of 15 meters, so it does meet the building code requirements for water body setback. Again, increased setback on this property is limited due to the slopes at the rear. You can dig into a slope for a house. It's a lot more challenging for a septic system. So applicant has submitted an application with as greater setback as they can without significantly altering the topography on the lot. This location was evaluated by a qualified septic installer, so it has been noted that the soil is suitable. This is a good location for it and will be suitably sized for the new dwelling. So while we do have comments regarding the septic as they were submitted with the application, this was circulated for review by Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, and those comments have yet to be received. So planning staff are recommending deferral of the application at this point till they come in to ensure there's no concerns or slope stability evaluations required, as we're cutting a bit into that. There's no concerns with setback for the septic, things like that. Making sure that if we approve or if the committee chooses to approve it, that it would be able to be installed safely and is suitable for the property.
Thank you, Jenny. Do we have the applicant online or the agent?
Yeah, we do. We have one hand here.
Hi, it's Brian Duncan.
Hi there. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, no questions really. I mean, we're trying to move the cottage back as far as we can with respect to sort of the slope of the land, if you will. It's a great location because of where the existing cottage is, the dock and everything, all the sort of layout is pretty good, but we recognize we got to come back from the lake as far as we can, and that's the mission. As we guys get digging and they start to put the foundation in, we'll make sure that if there's opportunity to come back a couple more feet, we'll take that opportunity.
We really appreciate that. And the fact that you're going to install a septic system, that's great news. We do have the planning comments are, however, that we need to wait for any concerns from or comments from the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. They have jurisdiction over natural hazards and so forth. So I have a motion. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Then I have a
We have one more.
motion.
Sorry, we have one more question from the
Oh,
public.
sorry. I'm just rushing along here.
It's
My
okay.
apologies.
Mr. Clark. Okay. No?
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yep.
Yes, we can.
okay, thank you. So my name's Chris Clark. I'm the agent on the file with Xander Plan. And I just wanted to inquire about the MVCA comments. I assume they'll be able to get the comments in time for the next meeting, but if they aren't, is the committee willing to move the application forward? Or are we going to be stuck waiting for MVCA to move this forward? Thanks.
I would anticipate that we will have the comments.
Yes, I had spoken with Mississippi Valley and they've confirmed that they will have the comments in time for the next meeting. They were hoping to have them in time for this meeting, but unfortunately, due to the amount of work that would be required in order to prepare all of the documentation for this meeting, it wasn't possible.
So anything further? Seeing none?
Seeing none.
Okay. I have a motion moved by Danny Meeks and seconded by Francis Smith that minor variance application APPN -2024-0015 Duncan for concession 6, part lot 12, Duncan Lane, Geographic Township of Olden, for the replacement of the existing 70 square meter, which is 753.48 square foot cottage, with a 125 square meter, which is equivalent to 1,345.49 square foot Cottage be deferred until comments are received from the Conservation Authority. All those in favor to defer? And that is carried. Is there any other planning business before us this evening?
No, there is not.
Then we need a motion to adjourn. And guess
Can I
what?
just make a where these properties are, and I often use that as a guide to figure out where they are. So I think we need to try and get that information.
I can absolutely do that, as well as share the circulation map with the committee if that's helpful to show the location of the subject property along with who's been circulated to.
Because some of these names of roads you don't recognize. So it's a big area to get used to where everybody is and where all the names are. Might be a good idea. What do you guys think over there?
I think you're ignoring Olden.
Good comments, good idea. Be very helpful, especially for those of us who haven't been here quite as long.
Been here forever and still don't know where those roads are.
All right. So are there any further comments? Seeing none. This is an equitable, inclusive group, you know. Moved by Francis Smith, seconded by Danny Meeks, that this meeting be adjourned until 6 p.m. August 8th, 2024, virtually and in person at Oso Hall, 1107 Garrett Street, Charlotte Lake. All those in favor? Carried.
6:32.
Wow.
Thank
Did I
you.